Welcome back to the Sonic Anniversary. It's the 30th one.
That sounds like a bad thing. It's a game over song.
Technically his 35th anniversary, but
Sonic is old.
God, yes. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, for Sonic's 34th anniversary. Hosted by SCWRM once again. As you're aware, in the month of June, we often do a little Sonic celebration here and there. In fact, last year I did a run of Sonic Adventure 2 in anticipation for the Sonic 3 movie. And yes, let's talk about the Sonic movies here and there. It is no secret that Sonic has been rising back up to prominence and in confidence for not just the games, but the brand in general, essentially. Sega are showing a lot of confidence, especially with Crossworlds. Even before that, though, the first movie, the one that was supposed to be what would be quite possibly the epitome of god-awful, turned out to actually be a pretty good movie that was saved heavily by the changing of a design and, shock of all shocks, listening to the fans. Well, yeah, one could argue that was more so because everyone was making fun of it. Shock of all shocks, it earned a lot of goodwill. And in turn, not just it, the sequel would go on to even bigger heights and be a success as well. And that in turn would lead us to Sonic Frontiers, which finally showed that yes, Sonic games really did always have that potential, and yes, they could get it right. From there on, it's been pretty much hit after hit after hit, even with a bit of a misfire with Sonic Superstars that most people grumble a bit with that, but, no, Sonic truly has been back. That is not to say there haven't been a few blemishes along the way, because speaking of those movies, well, it's finally time we cover what is the Achilles heel of the Sonic film series, the Knuckles series. Now, I want to be fair here. There are a decent amount of people who actually do like the series, and I can get it essentially. That being said, if you've been on the internet, you're probably aware that this series has garnered something of a reputation. Yes, it's the Knuckles series, alright. Starring Knuckles. I guess there's no other real big way to hinge around it, but what better way to actually get to the meat and potatoes of it than by starting with the first episode, The Warrior.
Now, word of advice, audience, because this is a Paramount Plus series exclusive, in some circumstances it might start with the Paramount Plus original logo with a cyan background, for example, just a couple of seconds. As tested by Dweebs, who here has Paramount Plus himself, in some cases it might not be that. So, just for convenience sake, start as the episode is literally about to start, so if you had that logo, skip that. Alright, take us away, Jova, please.
3, 2, 1, click. I do want to also iron some things out regarding Jeff Fowler. I know he tends to get a bit of shade thrown his way for this series, but I should preface a few things. Yes, he was one of the executive producers alongside a ton of people, but it should be noted he only directed the first episode, which is, shock of all shocks, widely considered to be the best episode of the series.
Which is something you should be worried about, because that means the series basically peaks right at the beginning and never turns. Anyway, the point is that this is basically, at least in my opinion, what people feared the Sonic movies were going to be. Basically, exclusively just the Sonic characters having to have shenanigans with the humans all around, instead of, trying to actually adapt the games. And I get it. Sometimes I get it because, CGI is expensive, keeping the celebrity voice actor expensive, which should be more of an advocate to actually use actual voice actors instead. But the problem is that the result of this is something that feels more like of a web series than an actual, corporate produced show.
I was gonna say that for later, but yes, that is this show's biggest weakness here. The lack of budget, while still wanting to make it look as good as the movies.
Which is
So in
weird
turn,
because
something had to give.
Paramount specifically made this to promote their new streaming service, Paramount Plus, because, they wanted to expand their portfolio of their IPs and produce extra content to actually compete against, Disney, Netflix, and Amazon Prime, for example. And this is what they came up with for that? Come the fuck on. Even the lowest points of the Disney Plus series tends to have at least a bigger scope of a budget going on.
So, have you all seen this?
I sadly did.
I've seen clips and reviews, but I've not seen the thing in full yet.
Deji saw it before me and was not particularly happy about it.
I will say, from what I've been able to garner, this thing is no abomination. In a vacuum, it's fine and all. That being said, can I just say that it is whack that this thing from the Sonic series actually made it to the Game Awards, but Sonic Frontiers' soundtrack did not. Just why? And I know maybe it's because the year it was in was hurting for game adaptations, but really?
It's a Dorito.
Yeah, I know, right? What?
Why aren't you eating Walkers?
Doritos are nice.
I mean, Doritos is Walkers, but regular
Doritos are very good. Buy for $3.99.
I mean, it's not the first time Idris Elba has, stooped up to shamelessly shield or something.
I'll admit, I'm fine with this kind of blatant advertising since it at least feels, natural enough.
And yeah, again, Sonic and Tails are basically just here for the first episode to establish things, which again, it's fine. This is supposed to be, the Knuckles series, so, let give him the spotlight.
Yeah, to a lot of people's surprise, there's a lot more to be positive in this first episode than one might think.
Almost as if it actually was handled by the person who actually handled the movies.
Yeah. Honestly, I kind of always do a double take when people blame Jeff Fowler for all this series turned out. Yes, I know he was an executive producer, but executive producer, or the title producer in general, can be, incredibly varied. Not to mention, he was, one of 6 executive producers with this series. There was Neil H. Moritz, who's actually listed as the top executive producer, Toby Asher, Jeff Fowler himself, John Whittington, Idris Elba himself, Haruki Satomi, Suji Utsumi, and Toru Nakahara.
Yeah, sure. That being said, again, conceptually, this series is just, to me, all wrong, because the ideal thought process for a spin-off of Knuckles at this point of the movie series would have to be, well, his proper origin stories, how he came to be and how he arrived ultimately to the real world. And yes, again, first of all, there was that small tie-in comic that got released, with the Sonic 2 movie. Yes, I know that. And also one of the episodes is gonna technically address that, but you'll have to see how they do that. It's just that instead, having to dedicate an entire series for the character and to having to be just boring shenanigans that will be not be out of place in something like, say, Gilmore Girls, for example, just boggles my mind.
My take on one thing that is very apparent is Paramount are a bit desperate these days. They haven't been doing the best with money, to say the least. Around the same time, Sonic is a series that's been rising up in popularity and commercial value. Like, merch sales are through the absolute roof. So, I'm guessing Paramount figured, look, we've already got a good in with Sega. Let's make our own cinematic universe. Now, I'm gonna give the Sonic movie credit. It at least has been doing better with the idea of a cinematic universe than a ton of other franchises do, since, well, for starters, the main base movies are at least good, and there is definitely potential for spin-offs of these characters here and there. So, fair tidings here and there. It's just that the problem is so obvious with this series, it's the lack of budget. Like, look, say what you will about the
Game of Thrones. It's funny, even though it was over for a couple of years by this point.
Mortal Kombat. Oh.
No, Game of Thrones. Dedication.
Not the last time the Sonic movie series will reference Warner Bros. Stuff.
But yeah, no, like, and you know, maybe it's not fair that we're talking.
What have you done?
Why did you put the helmet on the dog?
Now, come on. Come on. You had to know what you were signing up for when you took in free Mobians. Then again, no, she probably didn't. Oh no, he can't. Okay, credit where credit's due also. Some of the best jokes are also in this episode, too.
Yeah.
The last thing you
Knuckles, that is your mother.
You're pissed off. Not just that, you're pissed off Black Mama. You don't want to mess with them. Trust me, I know from experience. Uh-oh.
Okay.
Tails, you're
Tails,
mechanic. Get to work. Yeah.
I was gonna say, Tails, you fix it. No.
Well,
or
guys,
fire to lurk.
Well, guys, yes, he's an amazing mechanic, but it's not like he can instantly make stuff in just an hour.
I mean, if this were the games, he could.
Meanwhile, we recorded footage of James Marsden doing whatever he's doing.
Hi, this is James Marsden. I'm just still waiting for Disney to let me into the MCU, so see you for the third movie. Bye!
Oh, Wade.
Okay, you know,
am I about to learn why people don't like him anymore?
Okay. It's not so much that people don't like him anymore. In fact, ironically, this series did him more justice than Knuckles, but that is part of the problem. But, yeah, I will say this. I never hated Wade before. In fact, I don't even really think most people hated Wade before. Like, Wade was that guy everyone was fearing would be super annoying, but managed to have just enough balance to, you know, just be the side relief. The side comedic relief.
Yeah, keyword, the side comedic relief. Spoiler alert.
And he excelled at that role.
Spoiler alert, here he's pretty much the focus.
Look, I will just say this. It's been a proven track record that trying to give the comedic relief their own major project almost never works out well.
So, like Evan Almighty.
Or Cars 2.
Who plays Jack? Let me check the casting.
Jack
Julian
Sinclair,
Barat.
Julian Barratt. He's from Britain,
Okay.
England specifically.
But yeah, no, like, I'll be fair to Wade. Like, even in this series, he's actually not a bad character.
The problem to me more, Joe, is that he's not funny, and the show tries constantly to try desperately, asking you to actually laugh at his stuff.
I do agree with that.
It's like the average Epimedism protagonist.
Okay, he's not that bad, but he does have that issue where, yes, his jokes unfortunately can get stretched out in this series. Now, I will say it's not as bad in this episode, again, because this is one that remembers it's supposed to be a Knuckles series, but again, it is for later. Like, I'll admit, this is one of those series where I feel awkward critiquing it during the first episode, because if you were to judge it based off of just the first episode, you would not think it goes the way it does.
Well, okay, I'm sure I'm not the first to say this, but I do wonder if honestly this, at this initial conception, was actually visualized as just a spin-off movie, but because Paramount said, no, we have a streaming service, you need to turn this into a series, we don't care how you do it now, and that's how we got the end result. Which would explain a lot of the padding that goes nowhere. It's just diluted stretch stuff.
So they're asking the little kid to join their team.
Because she's a better bowler than him, alas.
You're disgraced.
So pack up. Go home, you're through.
I mean, I can think of worse friends.
You can think of a friend worse than somebody who would ditch you to have a Girl Scout on the team instead?
Yes. Someone who could murder you.
Well, that kind of goes without saying now, doesn't it?
And you turned out just fine, I think.
I'm sure of that.
Huh. Sonic listens to K-pop.
At least he's not flossing anymore.
Yes, he has matured from that, thankfully.
Yeah, okay. When I first heard the reaction towards what the show was going to be about, and also well towards the show itself when it did come out, a part of me was like, "Oh, we've fallen into the typical Sonic fan trap of people hating something just because it's not what they wanted."
Alright, here's one of the better things that actually, tries to be about Knuckles. Him seeing the spirit of Pachacamac. The thing is that they got Christopher Lloyd to voice him, and my god, you can clearly hear that Christopher Lloyd is very old at this point because he cannot read his lines very convincingly. Like, I get the idea, I get it that he's trying very hard for the role and everything, but much like with Master Xehanort, I don't think it was an optimal choice.
It's interesting.
Well,
it's
when the actor who played him suddenly died, what else could they do?
I know, my point to this is that to choose someone else that, I don't know, still conveyed all the shtick, but, did not also sounded like he's all literally on Door's death step,
Honestly, the funny thing is, I actually preferred Christopher Lloyd as Xehanort over the previous guy who played him in 3.
Rutger Hauer.
I prefer the Japanese VA to begin with.
Well, of course, yeah, but for me, I prefer the English dub, but yeah, no, like, Christopher Lloyd honestly brings a nice spin to Chris Brown. As Xehanort, for me, essentially.
It's a me, a Xehanort.
But yeah, no, I will say this, though. Pachacamac seems to have taken on a role somewhat similar to Takal from Sonic Adventure, showing up as a ghostly advisor for Knuckles here and there. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. Like so many other people said, when it was rumored and then revealed that Christopher Lloyd was getting involved with the Sonic universe, yes, I am one of the many people who was hoping he was actually being cast to be played Professor Gerald instead.
Also, it's a ghost, but we're operating on, there you go.
Perhaps glass is their weakness.
When was the last time we saw Pachacamac? Sonic Adventure?
Okay.
Technically Sonic and the Dark Brotherhood.
Well, that's not canon anymore, isn't it? Because Ken Panders.
But, I guess not counting the comics. Okay, I think he gets a mention every now and then, but in terms of appearances, can't really garner too much.
But yeah, Pachacamac told Knuckles to seek out Wade Whipple.
Dude, don't ruin the Batman factor.
And unfortunately, Knuckles cannot, lie.
Yeah. Again, I do like the movie's take on Knuckles. Like, a bit naive and very blunt and literal, but not overtly dumb, which thankfully the games have taken inspiration to remember that too nowadays.
Also, I noticed even before, what's that poster with the Bara pigeon in the background?
I'm not sure.
Motivational, yes, get fit and all, but makes me wonder what Wade's internet history is.
Well, now that he lives in the same vicinity as literal furries, let us hope he doesn't go certain avenues. Okay, as gimmicky as this feels, I don't mind this idea, one side character teaming up with another side character. Again, I get it. Have Wade Whipple as an anchor character since obviously you can't have the superstars from the movies all be there. And, I will give them credit. I was not actually expecting them to get back Idris Elba for the series.
Again, that's probably part of where the budget went, to make sure the consistency was kept.
I'm aware that Paramount may have been having money troubles at the time, but dudes, come on. You can't half-ass it. And I'd like to believe that they've learned that lesson. Hopefully.
My issue was mainly just because I see this a lot in the Sonic fandom, unfortunately. The information about the series came out and they were criticizing it. Hey, it's not what I wanted, therefore it sucks.
To their credit, I can't blame people for wanting a Knuckles show to, be about Knuckles.
I meant like being a comedy. Now, I mean, if you didn't think it was funny, then sure, go right ahead, comedy.
Yeah, this is Knuckles, I made a huge mistake face.
That was totally not Knuckles misunderstanding. That was him using that as an excuse.
Meanwhile,
uh-oh.
So yeah, here's something that could be potentially interesting. Yeah, because GUN was established in the previous movie. We have potentially the occasion of, potentially expanding by creating maybe original human villains. Kind of like how, as far as I understand, the Archie comics did. So the potential is technically there, and the trailer I had to admit was kind of promising in who they might have got, because of course you cannot really bring back Jim Carrey for this kind of thing. There you go. But you'll see what they do with it.
God, they're assholes.
The lives, it's gone when they are not.
Okay, these are apparently not necessarily proper con agents, although apparently they're British, so of course they're evil.
It was hard to see, but they just send him to the mushroom planet.
Yes.
They just kicked him there.
Just sacked. Fired by Ellie Taylor and yeah.
Why are GUN British?
To be fair, sure. The subtitles did mention that it's their London division.
Oh.
It said Gun Headquarters, London.
To be fair, this is a plot point that kind of would be reprised, in the third movie.
True.
So yeah, kudos to them.
I kind of forgot they went to London.
Also, yeah, this guy apparently Gunn managed to actually get one of Knuckles' quills.
So basically, it seems like these two are rogue gun agents who are kind of shifting about tech and contraband that Gunn have picked up from the previous movies,
including
and are shifting
Robotnik,
it with this guy.
Yeah, including Robotnik's Badniks.
Oh,
yeah.
Menacing.
Also, we've also got a different composer for this series. Instead of Junkie XL / Tom Holkenborg, we've got Tom Howe, a British composer who's done stuff including the theatrical film Love's Kitchen.
Okay.
Additional music for films such as Wonder Woman, Shaun the Sheep, Mulan, the 2021, and more recently, Dogman.
Oh god, Nicolas Cage playing Knuckles. Can you imagine?
What other character would Nicolas Cage be good at?
In the Sonic universe, I could see him as okay. If we're trying to be super ironic, I could see him as Omega. If we're talking more serious, I could see him being
SPO.
SPO. Yes. How did you know?
Well, I guess I had to, process of elimination. Something close to, say, Spider-Man Noir.
I have heard some rumors that apparently they are planning to get the Chaotix into the Sonic movie universe, so who knows? I mean, and it wouldn't be the first time that the movie series has unintentionally or intentionally hinted at a future actor. Remember, Sonic's a big fan of Keanu Reeves and Speed. But yeah, I do like how earlier they also got in the detail that Knuckles loves grapes, which is a thing from the original series.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least he didn't go out for milk. He got creative and abandoned you in the TJ Maxx.
Yeah, it's kind of the equivalent of abandoning your child in an IKEA store. What the hell?
God
hey,
forbid
at least
you.
they have like a bed there and like a kitchen.
God forbid you abandoned your child in the labyrinth that was Toys R Us back in the day. Loved the stores, but they were terrible to navigate.
Okay, this is something I never understood. Why would you're supposed to be? You're meant to be concentrating on getting as many of the pins knocked down as possible. How are you going to concentrate with all this stuff going on around you?
You'd be surprised, Whip. Some people actually really do like these gimmicky bowling alleys.
Yeah, for some people,
I
it
certainly
helps.
wouldn't.
Me neither, but I can imagine with it helps potentially someone get into the groove.
That's a strike!
Doesn't every bowling alley have like an hour or two where this happens?
Not everyone, but yes, a lot do.
Because I've only ever known them to have that. Not a fan for obvious reasons.
Obviously.
You see, guys, disco never truly died. It just retreated into bowling alleys.
That's a fate worse than death.
Yeah, this was in the trailer.
Okay, I guess this is where a good chunk of the budget went.
Hey, it's an action scene and a good one. So, again, like I've said, this first episode
Cherish it.
gets it.
Hey, call back to the second movie.
Yeah. He said the line.
Can we go home now? And you ruined it.
He just had his cool moment.
Like, I detested this trend of Hollywood, I don't know if they got it specifically from Joss Whedon or someone else, and I personally don't care where the origin is. This whole thing about having a moment, but then having the banter to try lampshading it.
Like, what's even the point?
I feel like it can work in some regards. Like, I actually don't mind this version, but I definitely get what you mean. And holy cow, if she wasn't wearing that protective gear, that bowling ball would have absolutely crushed her chest.
I forgot. I think I did ask in the past, like, what material are bowling balls made of?
I believe basically what they're using is a mixture of Knuckles' energy with stolen tech from Robotnik, which is how they're able to use it to harness the power from Knuckles' quills.
I know that, Job. I was asking bowling balls as a whole.
The material made in bowling balls can vary based off of which one, but as for the typical one, usually it's a combination of polyester, urethane, and reactive resin. Although
okay.
That being said, they are made to be very heavy. Most heaviest at their core, of course.
Obviously. Because the idea is that they're polished enough so they can be tough but also balanced.
Yeah, think about it like this. They're technically plastic, but they will feel as hard as stone or metal.
Shut up!
Told you those light things are distracting.
It wasn't even the light things, it was the lasers.
Don't touch it, it can electrocute you.
Nah, touch it.
And
are there any post-credit scenes in these?
Not that I remember.
I think again, it was since I saw clips or snippets
Keep
enough.
in
But
mind,
yes,
these credits will be used as the initial credits for the following episodes.
so yeah, that was the first episode, and I'll say it. I think it's good. I mean, it's not perfect, mind you. It does have some hintings of what is to come, but for what it is, I feel it showcases, Knuckles, Sonic, and Tails essentially. Hey, Ta! I'm sorry, that's Wade. Even though it looks more like that could be Tom, but yeah, regardless though. It actually remembers to have the Sonic characters, essentially, a good enough focus on Knuckles, and yes, they at least do set the stage for there to be action, not just silly hijinks, thankfully. Some of Wade's jokes go on a little too long, but for the most part, I'm fine with his jokes. And, they don't even waste too much time setting up there being villains and a conflict, so good stuff here and there. However, as you may have noticed, Knuckles has been kidnapped.
His own
And
show.
Yes, also, I don't know if it's a coincidence that two Brits just happened to kidnap an Echidna who also happens to have a bit of a British accent. Like, what's up with that?
We gotta get you out of the Americas.
Trust me, Trova, you don't want to go by that logic. I will tell you later. But I don't think there is a post-credit scene, at least for these. So I'll just sum it up quickly. Again, best episode of the series you'll be able to see because the quality is about to drop significantly, and it ultimately reinforces my theory that this was supposed to actually be just a made-for-TV movie that got reconverted into a into a series with all the things stretched out. Probably with not much time to actually work around with that.
Assuming your theory is right, I'm noticing a bit of a trend shift. Like, at first the idea was that expanding something that was a movie into a series would give it more room to breathe, but now between stuff like this and the Obi-Wan series, sometimes it is better to just leave stuff as a movie, I'm starting to notice. I mean, look, again, obviously, like most things, it involves nuance or whatnot, but it is a bit of a trend shift. Shiroi, what did you think?
I quite like that, honestly. There were a couple of jokes that didn't land for me, but aside from that, I did enjoy this first episode. I am starting to see where, like the whole, because I didn't know the situation, I just knew about the main critique of the show, and the one that, like, Knuckles is barely in his own show, and I thought they were just gonna, like, put way too much focus on the humans, kind of like the critique from the first movie. But no, they just kidnap Knuckles, so he's just like not even gonna be here half the time, straight up. Well, I guess we'll see.
What was they just called this show Green Hills or something?
And Wibbs, your thoughts on the episode?
It's alright, I guess.
Alright then. Well, that was the first episode, The Warrior. Tune in tomorrow for when we cover the second episode, Don't Ever Say I Wasn't There For You.
That's a
Cheerio.
mouthful. See ya.
See ya.